So this is a very sensible selection if you're moving from a big fun day boat into your first step of actual big boating with cabins, luxury, and having full weekends aboard. Ladies and gents, this is the Azimut 53 Flybridge. We're going to be doing a detailed test drive today, and you're coming along for the ride. Let's do this. All right, guys, beautiful winter's day. We're just going to get the boat straight up and moving. We are inshore, and I'm going to do 2 runs because we're in a tidal zone. We have tide flowing this direction at a couple of knots. So we'll do both directions to account for the tide. We might have a little bit of boat traffic to watch out for, keeping green markers on the right, red markers on the left. Going to pass 5 green markers, and it's a part of the world where if you make a mistake, you're on the sand. so we won't make any mistakes today. So bring the boat up through 1800 revs. I've got fuel flow on per motor, and I'm just going to get the boat up and moving initially, coming through 16 and 18 knots. She gets up on the plane, you can feel the power there. She feels like she wants to go. That's a classic Azimut trait. These boats are sporty boats. If you're looking for something that's got a little bit of fun factor, you'll definitely get that from an Azimut. They incorporate a lot of carbon in the superstructures, so when you build that into the power to weight ratio, you can have a fun piece of kit. All right, I'm happy on my navigation, and we are at 23 knots SOG. I'm sitting on 2,100 RPM, and I've got 97 litres per hour. Litres, not gallons, per motor. Sorry, I said per hour, per motor. Green, looking good, and I'm just going to hold that speed for a little while. Just pay attention through the drone shots. It's quite an edgy looking hull design, but I think there might be some practicalities to it, because you can see the V bow. It does a bit of this, and then it comes up to more of an aggressive angle. Looking at the design through the drone, it appears to displace a lot of the water early in these inshore conditions when you're dealing with boat wash. So I suspect for Mediterranean style, Sydney Harbour, Gold Coast inshore conditions or moderate conditions, it should remain relatively dry because of that design. I'm not saying that's going to be the case out in the ocean, so don't confuse me with that. Okay, so this feels like a bit of a moderate cruise. I might actually just back it off just ever so slightly to 2,000 RPM, 22 knots, moderate bow raise. It's all pretty relaxing. Got trim on auto, 21 knots SOG at 2,000 RPM and 90 litres. She feels like she wants to go faster. A little bit of vibration here at the helm. She just doesn't feel like that's the optimal speed. Feels like she wants to go. Okay, here we go. 24 knots SOG, 25. Now she's starting to reach a happy place. 26. From 26 and up, she really feels like she's boogieing. And actually, we just blew through that. We're at 29 already. So I'm at 2,400 RPM at 29 knots SOG. I've got green, red, I'm safe and in the channel. I'm consuming 122 litres a side. So why wouldn't you just sit on 28, 29? She's really in her element at the moment. Let's actually take that right up to wide open throttle before we run out of water. 29, okay, that's wide open there. 2,500 RPM and climbing. Okay, I can see 2,560 RPM. I see 150 litres consumption, 32 knots easy. 32 knots. We are in a tidal area, so we may get more going in the other direction. And I'm going to come off the plane now because that's about the end of my runway here. Just checking for boats around. Really good viz. I like these windows from driving from this lower helm. We obviously have 3 options on this boat. We can head up to the Flybridge, We've got the wing station out back. But if you're driving in a busy waterway, pay attention to the design of the boat that you choose, because if it's loaded up with cabinets or if the window design doesn't stretch all the way back, if you do need to do some tight maneuvers or you're surrounded by sailing yachts or power boats, not being able to look around and back could just make your day a little bit more exhausting, because you essentially have to move your body around a lot just to check your situational awareness, whereas this one, we're not struggling so much with that. Okay, so just coming through, all clear on the traffic, just doing a tight turn because I want to stay in the channel. It's quite an unusual experience for us Sydney-siders coming up here to the Gold Coast, where, you know, one lapse of attention can result in rather dire circumstances. Okay, so I've got the Seakeeper gyro off. I'm just coming through my wash just there and back on the plane. Okay, just accelerating through. 1900 RPM. She really gets on the plane. You can feel that power, a little bit of vibration from this lower helm, but once you're coming through that 2000 RPM, she settles down. She feels like she's in the groove. Straight back to that 27, 28. It's like it just feels like it wants to go. So I'm just going to sit it on a sensible cruise, and then I'll wind it up a little bit later down the track. Okay, so from 25 SOG, I'm seeing 95 litres consumption. I got a small boat coming the other direction. I may or may not be able to sustain this speed. 2100 RPM. Looking at my waves, I'm going to go really wide with this guy, and I think we can get away with it. Okay, I'm just going to increase my speed ever so slightly. Okay, it's a jet ski. Alrighty. 27 SOG at 2240 RPM, consuming 108 litres. Let's bump that up a little bit. 2300 RPM. She feels really smooth at that 2300, and we're now seeing 28.8, 29 SOG, burning 114 litres a side. Remember, it's a side. Okay, now let's give that wide open. 2,400 and climbing, 2,500 and climbing, 2,540, 150 litres a side. We've got 300 total consumption, and look at that, down with the tide, we're seeing 33.7 knots and climbing. So this boat goes good. Now my fuel flow's actually dropped a little bit. So 34 knots down the tide, and we're now sitting we're dropping down to 140 litres consumption a side. So let's just back that off and come back to a slow cruise. I like having the option to head up and drive upstairs on the nice days, come down here when the weather sucks. It's if you're looking for what I think you may be searching, a proper family weekend style boat that you can stay aboard, this is a great option, because when it's cold, it doesn't matter how you feel, it'll be your guests, it'll be your family, it's about how they feel. And they're the ones who are going to head down, and you probably want to hang out with them. 1,900 RPM, I'm seeing 20 knots and 80 litres. Making a few waves at that speed, and now let's just dissipate that and let's just get off the plane. So I think really anything below 20 knots, you're sort of just pushing water, so you might as well come off the plane. Let's do that now, and yeah, I can see on both sides, I can see my stern wave dissipating there. It's not a problem. The viz is great. And so now we're seeing 11 knots SOG, still making a little bit of a wave, but our attitude is much more of a displacement mode right now. And 1,150 RPM, 23 litres per side, getting 10.5 knots down the tide. You know, so that's quite comfortable. And the boat's got quite a level attitude, and if we just dial that back ever so slightly, 15 litres a side, 1,000 RPM, 10 knots down the tide, so call it 9 knots in the other direction. Super level attitude, still making waves that'll be somewhat offensive in a social situation. So let's just simulate rocking up to the sandbar. Okay, let's just dial that back to idle forward for a sec. And 600 RPM, 3.5 litres at idle forward. Still got a bit of momentum here. Still doing 7 knots. Let's just dial it. 650 RPM, feels better. Not making any waves. Still doing 7 knots. It's pretty quick. Okay, but that's much better. You're not going to offend anyone or lose any friends at the sandbar rocking up at that speed, and you'll have good situational awareness and control. So I like that. Awesome. So from here, we will take the boat upriver, and what we shall do is practice at the Flybridge and also drop the anchor, and then we'll take you guys through the systems of the boat so you can get a bit of a deeper understanding on what is where and how it all operates. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get this opportunity for you guys, but here we are. We're in the ocean. Dave, my cameraman for the day, had to get to the airport. He flew up from Sydney to help us out. So I've got the other boys, Sergio and Dan, just kindly gave up their afternoon, and here we are. We're out in the Pacific Ocean, and it's a bit of a lake. But it's beautiful. I hope you enjoy the shots. So we don't really have anything in the way of swell, real moderate swell. Still have a little bit of westerly blowing the waves out. So a little bit of wind chop, but it's more Mediterranean conditions, to be fair. So we'll just take the boat through her paces. I'm sitting on 2,000 RPM. I got 23 knots SOG, 95 litres consumption, a comfortable motion. And you know what? As I was talking about before, I suspected that hull design would send a lot of that wash out to the side. I am observing that now. It's being parted and it's going in that direction, and we are still dry. We're not really taking anything up and onto the windscreen. So let's just bank around to port, clear, good viz. I like having these big windows. I want to increase that speed. Okay, just feeling good. These are sporty boats, sporty big boats to drive if you want them to be. All right, just checking my compass, got my visual line of sight there. 26 knots SOG, 2,200 RPM, 2,300 RPM. Let's just run it out to sea for a little bit. Okay, 2,300 RPM, 115 litres total consumption, or sorry, per engine, 115 per engine, 230 total. Let's go through a couple of banking turns at 27. Let's get up to 28. Seakeeper gyro is off. You know, just putting it through these turns, it's predictable, fun. It has enough heel to make it fun and enjoyable, but you are not going to scare anyone at all with this boat. Let's take that through around another 100 degrees and let's speed her up a bit. I think my biggest takeaway is that this hull design does appear to be in moderate conditions to be sending that wash out where you want. She really gets up and boogies when you desire. I'm sitting on 30 knots now. This is fun. I'm going to be going into the wind chop in a second. So I'm going to get some impacts with the hull, and we'll bank this around, and we'll run straight into the wind chop. Yeah, you can feel the hull just skipping over those waves. You do hear a little bit of the water on the hull there. Couple little rattles from the furniture. Nothing that's out of the ordinary in this category. I would expect that for all boats in this European pleasure boat category. Nice, comfortable. I can obviously close that back door if I wish, and I'll just slow those speeds down to... Got the sun in my face here. So that is a little bit of an operational issue. If you are driving home, you don't have anything to pull down, you might want to consider a hat, sunnies, when you do have that low light, and if it is just in the wrong condition. Going through a few waves there, that's good. Just got to watch out. We had 2 whales in the water. Pretty sure they're in this direction, but I do have sun in my face. Yeah, cool. This is cool. Yeah, you're going to find this, if you're coming from a considerable sized day boat, quite an easy thing to get the hang of, to be fair. Whilst she feels like a 60-footer in terms of volume, she drives in a manner that someone coming from a 40-footer would be very comfortable, and I think you'd settle into this boat quite quickly. Very good. Okay, we'll change location and wrap this video for you. Okay, I've come up to the Flybridge just to have a steer. Just bearing in mind, guys, it's winter, so it's actually not really where I wish to drive at the moment, so I'm just going to have a quick little play just for the test. In terms of my overall commanding views, it's the best up here, obviously, because we're high, we're elevated. I love this windbreak just here, in that it's all perspex and I can see through. Got a little bit of viz through the stairs just there. Much better viz down the port aft. Obviously, you could equip this with cameras, should you wish, but you don't necessarily need to, because you can just go down to the wing station at the bottom of the stairs. And a trick for young players, particularly if you're in a tidal zone, if you are like somewhere up here on the Gold Coast, you can option these Volvo IPS systems with an option called DPS. It's called Dynamic Positioning System, and it literally allows you to press the top left button. You take the throttles back to neutral and activate the joystick by pressing the top left button. It will talk to satellites, and no matter if you're in a tidal zone like this or getting blown by the wind, the boat's going to stay right where you left it. So it's really, really handy for short-handed maneuvering of a large vessel. So whilst this thing's got lots of plenty of get up and go, she's fun, you can throw her around potentially in a similar fun manner to your previous day boat, it still feels almost like a 60-footer. So it's still a big thing, and having technology like that may be useful. I say may, it's not the case in every part of the world, so it's not always a necessity, but it may be of great benefit to you. I like having this footrest here. If I want to stand up, that's a pretty easy transition, and then communicating with people is actually also quite fun, which is my theme whenever I'm on an Azimut. It puts me in that mood of enjoyment, and I would have a lot of my friends lounging around right here on a beautiful belting summer's day, and I'd have a chit chat. Maybe a few more girls up on the lounge on the foredeck as well. Like it's that kind of vibe. Anyone who wants to be out of the sun, we can just close it using the buttons just here. So that's kind of how I see this area working for you, bearing in mind that you do have to take the covers off, so that is extra work, but I think that's the idea. On a boat like this, you do want to come up and enjoy this space, so whether it's family, fun, or friends, that's up to you. But yeah, this is all good. I'm not going to go fast because I've already done that, and I'll freeze my nuts off. So that's why I don't want to do that. So from here, back to the marina or somewhere protected, and we'll go through a few more bits and pieces. Here's me. I said I wasn't going to go fast, and I've done it. We're sitting on 19 knots. It's actually quite pleasant. It's just that time of the day where there is enough heat in the sun for us to enjoy it. In another 2 hours, it's going to be getting real cold, I reckon. But yeah, perfectly good. Just cruising 19 knots, no problems. Commanding views of everything I need to see in challenging navigational conditions. So it's quite nice. Very pleasant. All right, I hope that was useful, ladies and gents. Before we get to the wrap up, I'll just remind you, service battery, genset battery, port and starboard engine battery. So that's where you start your day. And then you literally just come here and you just get into the panel. You can actually, you're probably going to be on shore power. So you can turn the genset on just here, and then you go from ship to shore, and you've got your 24 volt and 240, and you just select what you are going to utilize for the day. Your battery charger is in there, and turn it on, away you go. It's relatively straightforward. I do suggest for many of you, if you are going to be ordering this boat, think about the Volvo DPS function. Let's try and sit in the sun because it's nice. You will get some value out of that, because it should be a time saver. Having the ability to leave that helm, press DPS, and know for sure that the boat's going to be where you left it, and then go to the wing station or go to the Flybridge. It's just a little stress reliever. In saying that, there's many, many parts of the world that are not as tidal affected as where we are today, so it's less of a thing. But just, you do you, think about where you're going to be boating, and then work back from there. So, performance feedback, experience level required. Intermediate is where I would see this boat, because of the technology available to us, the size, the layout, and the windows and the great visibility. I see this as being a good boat to use in busy waterways. You'll be fine. But I think if you've got a bit of experience on a day boat, you'll transition into a boat like this quite comfortably, always with training. Can you run this boat solo? Well, with the DPS, yes, you can. Without the DPS, no, you can't, because getting lines, just sorting things out is going to be a little bit more difficult. You're obviously going to need to have the option to operate the anchor from the helms, not just from the bow. So a few little tick boxes in order to operate the boat by yourself. Other than that, it's always going to be a two-person operation minimum. And would you run this boat with crew? Yeah, absolutely. In some parts of the world, not in Australia, not in America. If you are, it's very unusual. But where I live in Thailand, 100%. You might even live down there certain times of the year. So totally fine. And in Europe as well, I understand that, and the boat is suitable to that purpose. But the crew space in our part of the world, when I say our, Australia, where I am right now, is going to be great for toys, great for storing stuff. And so that makes a lot of sense there. So in general, if you want something sporty, if you want something fun, if you want something sexy, Italian, and this is the beginning of a bit of a family journey for you in perhaps multiple boat ownership, where you do want to do long weekends, have the possibility to take it up and down the coast. It's not an out and out offshore boat. It's a, summer boat. It's a harbour boat. It's a coastal boat, but you can do little runs up and down the coast, not a problem, but don't see it as an ocean crossing vessel. Sometimes people jump in the comments and ask me whether we can drive boats like this to New Zealand. No, you can't. That's not its design brief. What would you compare it with? There's a lot of boats out there on the market in this size range, and I'll stick with essentially the Europeans. You could see the Princess F55, the Fairline Squadron 50, the Nimbus 495, and the Sunseeker Manhattan 55 would all be boats that fall in that range. But the list is actually as long as my arm. Would you compare it with the Australian builds? Not really, because they're sort of going for enclosed flybridges and that sort of stuff. I can see some use cases where they might cross over, but they're sort of going down a different use case, if that makes sense. So, hope that was useful. Woo, wind. I hope you got some value out of that. Please do subscribe, share this with your mates. Tell me what boat you are comparing this with now, and I will then go and try and hunt it down and test it myself if it's possible. I do read all the comments. I try to respond to as much as I can. If you are trying to buy this boat or another, and you want to speak to me directly for some quick feedback, the only place to do that is on Connect. Link is down below in the description. Love you lots. Hope you enjoy the backgrounds. I will see you next time somewhere in the world, and go and check out this next video of a boat that competes directly with this one, and do your own research. See you, legends.